This looks like a fairly decent sized Nikko. I mean, I'm sure it can't be tiny or anything. Oh, I guess it is. How's it going, YouTube? It's Lucas here from the DD205 channel, and today I have a video on an RC for ants. This thing is a Nikko wrapper that came out sometime around the 90s or 80s. I never found research. Um, This thing came with the pocket racers, or zappers, or whatever have you. I forgot what they're actually called now that I did research. This thing came out along with a Nikko zapper, which makes a lot more sense than a wrapper, but whatever. Every time I try to find a Nikko wrapper, all it comes up with is a Nikko wrapper, and not the same things. So, coming out around the 90s, whatever. It's tiny and probably one of the smallest production cars, or toy grade production cars at that time. It being a little two-wheel drive, only steers when you drive forward, fully function kind of RC. Takes 4 AAA batteries, which are amazingly adorable. So if you can count, that is 6 volts powering this entire vehicle, which is, I mean, actually a large number considering most other vehicles of even 10 scale size are powered by 7.4 volts. And the controller is, I mean, like most oftentimes happens, is powered by a bigger battery than the car, which is a 9 volt, which is funnily enough the same size battery that fits in the actual regular size Nikko controllers, which I should actually grab. So this is a regular sized Nikko controller. It's bigger than the car almost, and comparably sized to this little tiny one, which is getting caught all over on everything. It's fairly decent sized, actually. Yeah, maybe like a 50% size. It's, again, twin stick, is fully function, except, I mean, you can only turn when you're going forward, which kind of was a thing around that, mainly, or around that time. This thing has, I think this is the only color that it came in and the only bandwidth it came with, because I think the zapper had a 49 and this one has a 27. So this one is a little two-wheel drive. I think it didn't really change between the two either, or between the wrapper or zapper. As I said, is two-wheel drive, only, steers when you go forward. But that's because this thing is tiny and has an electromagnetic steering servo in it, so it basically just uses magnets to turn, which is strange, but whatever. Motor in this thing is huge for something of this size and date. Considering motor technology is advanced, obviously, it's still technically a big motor. It's a 180 sized, I believe. So typically what you'd find for size-wise in newer vehicles of this size, even four-wheel drive ones, which surprisingly I don't know how they pack all of that crap into that small of an RC, but it's possible, I guess. This thing, as you can see, only has one screw to take off the body. Otherwise you have to deal with clips and whatever else that Nikko designed to get it off. Otherwise it reveals the chassis, which just doesn't have the body on it, and you can take off the motor casing, which just reveals the transmission, which is nothing special. It doesn't even have 2-speed or turbo on the controller. And otherwise the front, I haven't actually taken apart the front, so this is about all you get. Controller, dual stick, little thing. It's tiny, and I like using it because the springiness is very soft and easy to move, unlike most of these ones, which are a bit harsher, I guess. I mean, they're a smoother operation, kind of, but they have their benefits, I guess, because this is bigger and fits in more people's hands, and this one is smaller and smaller. Otherwise, massive freaking antennas on this thing. Like, I don't know where you're supposed to be driving, and like how far you're supposed to drive this thing away from you. But last I checked, most vehicles didn't even have half the size of an antenna as this thing does. I'm sure they probably just, used most of the receiver stuff from this in most other vehicles, so that's why it's just residual. Which actually, technically, Nikko should have taken that advice of taking the experience of making a tiny receiver and put it into other vehicles. But to my knowledge, I don't really know because that's circuit boards and whatever else. And I most of the time don't mess with that stuff. So technically, if you wanted to, you can desolder the motor and solder up a new one, which would be quite a bit faster. But then again, you're only running on 6 volts, which if you upgrade it to like a Nerf motor of some kind, I'm sure it'll probably work just as fine. I don't know why you'd want this thing to go any faster. It's decently fast, actually, especially when you can't turn separately. So that's something that you might have to figure out is to power. I don't really know how you could do it, but I'm sure you can probably have a separate power source for just the steering, because it's kind of my only complaint with this thing is that it normally steers when you drive, which is common back then, but I'm spoiled, I guess. So, yeah, that's all about. It's just about all that I have to talk about this thing. I'm sure there was more before I actually started filming the video, but when I film a video, my brain just exits the window next to me. So instead, I guess I can fill in the time by putting in a driving portion because it's tiny, and why not? And hopefully my cats don't get in the way. So I'm just gonna jump cut to that. It's my lovely stained carpet. The on-off switch is down here. Controller shuts off every 15 seconds of non-use, so I think it should have relatively decent AAAs in it. I don't really know. Steering trim is definitely screwed up on this thing, because I don't think it should be all the way over there. I'm going to try my best just to try to drive it. It just got, there's kind of sand in the transmission, so occasionally it just doesn't want to move. I'm sure it'd be a lot better if I, drove it outside. Yeah. This thing isn't working so well. I guess I can move it. I can put it back over here. Yeah, reverse doesn't really work, and it doesn't really work all that well on asphalt either, so that's for specifically this one, because I don't really know. It's off screen. So, I'm going to put this back on the bench, because this wasn't as successful as I thought it would be. Yeah. As I just found out, apparently you can set it like this, so that's something. I'm sure they weren't really planning for it, but you can. So, that's about all I have to talk about this thing, because I probably had a lot more to say, but window out the brain, especially after that. Brain out the window, I should say, because words. So, Lucas out. Bye, YouTube.